on? It is on now. Good morning. So my name is Muriel Eliséon. This is Tommy Noonan. And if you have been to SwitchPoint before, you know that we are a culture mill and that we co-direct a performing arts laboratory here in Saxborough, North Carolina. We are here today to tell you the story of our SwitchPoint together with Dr. Robert Furberg from RTI International. To tell that story, I need to begin by telling you what is the center of the work we do in our laboratory, and this is the body. The body as a depository or repository, or as Tommy mentioned to me earlier, of our individual and communal history. The body as a unique source of knowledge and wisdom. The body with both its infinite possibilities and its excruciating limitations. And the body as a place to practice over and over the virtuosity of being human. So from our professional and experiential study of the body, we source artistic technologies that become relevant to other sectors, opening different perspectives, different access doors to medical and scientific research, for example.
So 2 years ago, Heather Lagarde and SwitchPoint put us together with Dr. Furberg in what you're seeing behind us, which was us providing an embodied demonstration of some of the wearable sensor data that Dr. Furberg was working on at RTI International, tracking heart and lung data in terms of measuring physiological response to stress. So that first meeting was a SwitchPoint, let's say. It was full of unknown, it was unexpected, it was playful, and what we did is we followed that unknown moment and relationship as it emerged into exciting research possibilities now for Dr. Robert Furberg, as well as a collaborative project which we are currently undertaking together with the American Dance Festival and Keenan Charitable Trust and RTI International, which we'll tell you about in a moment. I'll pass the mic, though, to Dr. Furberg to talk a little bit.
Hey, everybody. Ooh, can I click? Yes. Thanks. Awesome. Okay. So we managed to encode an awful lot of information in movement. And what I think is really kind of interesting about this is that our sort of the manner in which we encode this information as deliverers and the way in which we decode this information as receivers when we look at somebody walking and we see them moving in a way that might be unusual, conveys a lot of information that's tacit knowledge that we're rarely ever taught about. And I think it's one of these interesting, really elemental kind of human things that has been a lot of fun for us to kind of explore how do we bring art into our science and how can we bring some science into the art that others are creating. And I sort of bring this to bear from doing, the paying project work that I do right now is supported by the National Institutes of Health, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and a group called DARPA, where we do a lot of sensor-based data collection on people to gain sort of newer insights on their sort of human performance, health behaviors, or physiological state. Let's take our walk for a minute, as it's one of these things that conveys an awful lot of information. And if you've been aware of what's been happening in sort of the context of digital health and wearable devices and sort of the increasing consumerism of more privileged sort of first world health services delivery, the walk, as by way of step counters and products like Fitbit, have sort of gained this new kind of relevance in terms of public health, even though the pedometer and the concept of measuring steps is not necessarily new. When we get into like measuring gait and somebody's walk and the way they move, it's actually a really complex thing. And if you think about it, there are a number of things that you can convey and receive in somebody's walk. Like, is somebody a threat to me? Are they not a threat? Are they happy? Are they sad? When we think about the walk, there are 5 components of the walk. One of the first and sort of interesting and most recognizable, like kind of things about it immediately, is your stride length, and your sort of your tempo, your pace of walking. Do you have a sort of long and like really exaggeratedly like slow walk when you move around, or by virtue of your build, you take very small steps, really quickly? One of the, I think, interesting things about walking is that under normal operating anatomical conditions, this is the human's default mode of locomotion, right? We learn how to walk early in life, and we develop our own funky walks early in life, and they stick with us for the rest of our lives. And this is a really interesting contrast between the universality of walking, right, but then also the individuality of it. We each have our own funky, weird walk. The composition of our walk is this really interesting kind of composite or amalgam of our anatomy, how long our legs are, whether or not they're the same length, what's happening with the rest of our body. Our personality, there are these huge socio-cultural influences on the walk, how quickly you walk, how fast you move, the nature in which you move, and the context in which you move, as well as our environment. Not just, sort of what is your foot standing on, but just in general, what environment have you adapted to walking in? And it's one of these things that as we sort of get into this, we find that I think the walk is a little bit like breathing, in that it's one of these functions that we can execute without having to think a lot about it, or we can affect some control over and kind of exaggerate. In moments when we don't affect control over our walk, one of the really interesting things about it, given its uniqueness, is the fact that we can measure all of these really detailed, using sensors that measure movement and motion placed all over the body. You can get down to these really, really, really granular levels of detail around everything from your ankle and the extent to which it moves, your knee, your hips, and sort of the rest of your body all kind of coming together to do this. I think the walk and personality and identity are pretty tightly linked, and I think that serves as one of the more compelling parts of this awesome collaboration that we've been able to do, is sort of this exploration of what happens to people when your ability to move the way you want to move is affected by a neurodegenerative disease. If you don't believe me that your walk is really closely associated with your personality, let's take a moment and talk about biometrics for a second. We normally think about fingerprinting as like, that's the one that we all kind of recognize as a way to sort of verify your identity. This NIST study from 2004, the best performing system, demonstrated the 98.6% accuracy based on one fingerprint matching to one person. That's just a nice benchmark. 98.6% accuracy with a single fingerprint. We've seen some really interesting advances over the last 10 years where sensors have become more ubiquitous. They've ended up on our smartphones. So now, processing of raw sensor data has gotten us to the point where gait analysis and gait recognition can accurately identify individuals with greater accuracy than that of a fingerprint. It's so legit that the financial services industry have adopted how to collect, manage, and process biometric data, including gait analysis, as a way to verify your identity before, after, or in between executing some kind of financial transaction, which is pretty fascinating. These standards were released a year ago, so this isn't really too far off from, I think, more widespread adoption. This freaked me out a little bit. As a researcher, I was trained to believe that an accelerometry data set removed with any sort of personal identifiers removed and raw sensor data, very voluminous raw sensor data. We do some sampling, commonly at 64 times per second, frequently up to 252 plus times per second. That's a lot of data to generate on a person who's generating data over the course of an hour. Back in December, thousands of people were successfully re-identified using a data set from a study called NHANES, which was never intended to be traced back to the individual. And so this caused a lot of concern. So if there are any if anybody was wondering the extent to which our walk is associated with our personality, I submit to you here are examples as to I think, help make that point. What would happen to you if you were diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disorder that is uncurable, that fundamentally changes the way you hold yourself when you're not moving and when you're moving? Imagine the effect that this would have, knowing what you know now about the connection between movement and identity. Imagine what kind of effect this might have on you.
So to present our project around Parkinson's disease, I want to first tell you that we're going to move, dance, and talk at the same time to embody the practice that we have in our meeting and to practice the possibility of generative thinking while moving.
The project is called They Are All. It's a transdisciplinary artistic and scientific project which links an original dance work being created now with new perspectives on Parkinson's disease. It's a transdisciplinary endeavor. That means that it is seeding ground for new scientific research to take place in the future. It's a multi-generational collaboration, and it involves professional dancers, dancers living with Parkinson's disease, technologists, researchers in physical therapy, and neuroscientists.
So it's led by Culture Mill, and is commissioned by the American Dance Festival with support from the Keenan Charitable Trust and RTI International, in collaboration with clinicians from Duke University Department of Functional Rehabilitation of Neuroscience.
It has artistic goals: to create a process and a dance work which generates a dynamic experience of shared humanity among all who participate and witness it.
To engage an archaeology of the self composed of layered history manifested in the human body, constant evolution, limitation, and possibilities.
And also to create a common experience. It's not a project about Parkinson's disease, but it's a dance work that's the result of a carefully crafted set of conditions and methods which have yielded an experience of a work that engages realities of aging, of relationships, of care, loneliness, death, youth, courage, acceptance, and the human body as potential, as pure data, and so much more than data.
Building towards the future, phase. Building towards the future, scientific goals.
Has a couple of different scientific goals. To demonstrate with qualitative evidence that a unique set of improvisational movement, mindfulness, and somatic tools used within an artistic process can generate beneficial outcomes for people living with Parkinson's disease.
You do this one.
It also builds upon existing research done at Wake Forest University from Dr. Glenna Batson, Christina Soriano, Dr. Christina Hugenschmidt, showing that there is an increase in adaptive functionality in people living with Parkinson's who engage in improvisational movement exercises, and also a project done in Israel and Germany called Störung, which asserts that dancers, people with Parkinson's disease, and researchers who are also dancing and moving help to generate new conceptual approaches and ways of understanding movement disorders.
So we are providing a setting in which Dr. Jeff Hodder of Duke University and Dr. Robert Furberg of RTI international, can gather preliminary qualitative data as formative research to assess perceived change in ability as an indicator of long-term increase in adaptive functionality.
It is not a research study, but it provides the ground for future innovative research work. And it exists in 3 phases, as we already showed you for a moment before. Phase 1, workshops with Dr. Hoder and Furberg, professional dancers, dancers living with Parkinson's disease, taking place this summer in a final performance at the American Dance Festival. That's happening now. Phase 2.
Timing is different like this. New round of workshop held at Twin Lake Senior Community in Alamance County, just here around the corner, to refine and build upon practices developed in phase 1, accompanied by an interdisciplinary group of professionals meeting regularly to discuss and prepare future research based upon the initial phases. Phase 3.
Phase 3 takes place here in 2021. It's a conference linking dance to non-art sectors and talking about the generative possibilities of linking dance tools to non-art sectors with that project as a centerpiece.
It will be called Dance and.
So we'd like to wrap up now and involve you, as we always do.
Yes. So we want to leave you with a practice, as we shared one with you this morning. Don't worry, we don't ask you to come here and dance. Even though, maybe. Anyway, not now, not today, not this year. So if you would please find a situation where you can see everyone. It might be standing, or it might be sitting. If sitting is better for you, just orientate yourself so that you can see everyone. So just take that moment, actually, to see everyone. Can we have more light, actually? I don't see you. So just see everyone. Merci. And take that moment to drop what you are thinking right now. It's the hardest thing to do. Drop what you are thinking right now, to listen and be receptive to what is core, to who you are and what you do. While you do that, look around you to all the individuals in this room as attentively as you can. Yes, take your time. Yes, take time. Time is always yours. Yes, eye contact. And now hold this question as you do that. I know what I know. What do I don't know? There is a lot of knowledge in this room. What do I don't know? Somebody unexpected in this room might have a beginning of an answer or the same question. For me, the person that was unexpected is called Dr. Furberg. For us. So go beyond what you think you know and who the people are in this room. And the last question is, what's your switch point? Thank you. Have a great day.